Welcome to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman, the podcast dedicated to helping you build the business of your dreams and live the life you always hoped for, with valuable and fun tips and info to make your life easier and more fun. And now, here's your host, a man who sprinkles metal shavings on his breakfast cereal just for fun, Jason Silverman.
Everybody, and welcome to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. I'm your host, Jason Silverman, and I'm thrilled to share some time with you once again today. As you know, I'm always in the hunt for interesting as well as super smart real deal guests, and I got to tell you, today's show is a winner. I want to introduce my listeners to somebody who's truly been there and done that, and I'm excited to pick his brain for your benefit today. And as most of you know, I'm also excited to pick his brain for my benefit as well. Now, for the folks who I work with in any of my coaching programs or through Powerful Words Character Development or All-Star Cheer sites, you know how much I focus on the importance of effective networking, right? Well, the show is going to help us do just that. So today it's going to be my honor and privilege to share an amazing resource with you. You're going to love today's guest. He's got a ton of valuable info about what I consider to be one of those cornerstones that gets us from mediocrity to thriving success. And he's also got a fun way to deliver it. So I want you to strap yourself in. Today's show is going to be a blast. As I'm sure you already know, I'm committed to helping business owners just like you to become more successful, enjoy your career more, and in general, make your life significantly more fun. Folks, we only get one ride on this merry-go-round, right? Let's make sure it's one hell of a ride, shall we? Alrighty, boys and girls, it is time to stop surfing Facebook, put away your phone, your tablet, your dog, your cat, your spouse, your child, anything that might possibly distract you from today's show. You're about to get some great and immediately implementable information, and I don't want you to miss even a second of it. So, before we officially get going, I want to give you a little bit of background about our special guest expert today. Dave Delaney is a popular keynote speaker, author, and digital marketing consultant and founder of FutureForth.com and NetworkingForNicePeople.com. He's best recognized for his work in the digital marketing, social media strategy, and business networking spaces. Delaney is the author of the acclaimed book, New Business Networking. He's been featured in Billboard Magazine, Forbes, and appeared in USA Today, BBC, CBC, VentureBeat, Entrepreneur, and the Toronto Globe and Mail. Dave, welcome to The Real Deal. I'm thrilled to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Jason. I'm excited to be here.
As am I to have you. So before we officially get started, for those who haven't had the opportunity and pleasure of meeting you or hearing you speak or reading any of your books, take a second, if you would, and share your story with our listeners. You know, what are you passionate about? What makes you tick? Who is Dave Delaney?
It depends which day you're asking. Well, first of all, I'm Canadian, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee with my wonderful wife and 2 kids. And so my background is in communications, marketing, promotions, publicity, all of that good stuff. I've always worked in that space, and I've been an early adopter with a lot of social networks and websites and all that internet stuff, actually even before that. But so I started a company called FutureForth, and I help small businesses understand how to use digital marketing for their businesses. I wrote the book New Business Networking a few years ago, as a way to share what I've learned. I had this moment of realizing that if it were not for my network, I don't think I would be I wouldn't be where I am today. So I wrote the book New Business Networking, which I have an interesting story about, which I can get to if you like. And then last year started NetworkingForNicePeople.com, which is a community of nice people who want to learn how to network effectively. And so I share lots of goodies on that site as well.
Fabulous. Well, I'm excited to dig in. Tell me this, I love to ask this of authors, what made you write your books?
For New Business Networking, it came, first of all, I have a lot of friends and peers in the industry, in sort of the online marketing industry, perhaps, that have gone on to become best-selling authors. And I was always inspired by them to write a book. And I had this idea to write a book about combining online and what I know from social networks and from content marketing and such to growing your network online, but also what I've learned in my own career and through reading other people's books and talking to people about networking in person and and I've also co-founded 2 conferences and organized monthly networking events and things like that. So I had this idea to write this book. What happened was I was at a conference, speaking at a conference, and my publisher was there, my future publisher was there, exhibiting at that conference. And so I'm a big advocate for talking to strangers, unless you're my kids. So I tell people, go and talk to strangers. Nobody goes to a conference who wants to just be there alone, stand there alone. So go and talk to people. And so anyway, I needed to practice what I preach, right? So my future publisher had a booth set up, and she looked really bored. So I went over and introduced myself to her, Catherine Bull. Hi, if you're listening. And we started talking about the other authors. And I said, yeah, I know some of these guys. And we were just chit-chatting. And she said, what's your book? And I said, well, I don't have a book. And she said, no, what's your book? She put me on the spot. It was amazing. And I'd never articulated this idea, not even to my wife, who I share everything with. And so I told her right then and there this idea for this book about networking called New Business Networking, and she loved it. And right there and then, we exchanged business cards. We emailed each other afterwards, and next thing I knew, I had a book proposal done and accepted and a book deal. And my book was published from Q Publishing, which is a subsidiary of Pearson Publishing. So my book about networking came as a result of networking.
Huh. Well, that's kind of the natural progression, right?
Right. Yeah. It was a nice place to be. Yeah.
So what about improv with improv?
Right. So improv is something newer that I've tapped back into. It's I've gotten on this kick of really thinking about the passions we have as kids and how those passions kind of transpire in our own careers, and whether we crush them and kill them, or whether we revisit them or follow those passions through our careers. And I've always had a passion for comedy, performance, and improv. When I was much younger, I studied and graduated improv from Second City in Toronto. And then I lived in Ireland, where I met my wife, who's from Tennessee, of course. Yeah, it's crazy. I have a crazy life. But we lived abroad for several years. And when I was living in Galway, Ireland, I created an improv troupe and had my own improv troupe for about a year. And we did some corporate training and things like that. So fast forward to now, or the last couple of years, I was speaking at Inbound, which is HubSpot's conference in Boston. And I decided to do a presentation not about social media and content marketing and networking and the stuff that I normally speak about, but rather do a brand new presentation called How to Improve Your Life with Improv. And I did this presentation, and it went over really well, and I had amazing feedback from it. So much so that when I got back to Nashville, on the sly, I didn't tell my wife again. I auditioned for an improv troupe in Nashville in my 40s, and everybody's much younger. And I went and auditioned and got a call back and got accepted into this Nashville improv troupe. And so I really have been excited about improv again. And so what I've done is put together a curriculum to come to businesses and facilitate workshops to improve communication. And I'm calling it my communication reboot. And this is something that I'm doing with businesses to help teach them how to communicate better in the workplace, and with their potential customers and current customers as well.
I think that makes a ton of sense, and there's a ton of value there. So I know that when I say the word networking, it probably sends a lot of shivers down some spines.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why do you feel like people still fail at networking today?
It depends. I mean, I think some people, perhaps people that are more introverted, don't, or just shy, they fail perhaps at networking because they don't go. They don't turn up. And showing up is obviously the first step of networking. It's actually showing up. And whether that's online or in person, showing up is key, or you're not gonna grow your network if you don't meet anybody new. So that is something that holds some people back. The other group, the extroverts, the loudmouths like me, they tend to go to the events, but they do all the talking. And they fail at networking effectively because they don't listen, which is an acronym for silent. They don't listen. So they need to listen to the people they're talking to. And by listening to people, they can discover opportunities to serve those people and to help them. So I think it's twofold. I think networking itself has a bad rap. The name itself even has a bad rap. We think of that's why at networkingfornicepeople.com, right on the front page, I do a little video, but there's copy there that says something to the effect of, it's not about going to an event. If you go to an event and you feel like you need to shower afterwards, the networking wasn't good, right? And it's not about the blackjack dealer instead replaced the cards with business cards, and they're whipping business cards in everybody's faces and trying to collect as many as they can. That's not what networking is about. Networking is about helping other people first and growing your connections that way. And that's, another really big mistake that people make as it applies to networking.
Mm-hmm. So, networking for nice people, what's that all about?
So networking for nice people came about as a website where I share articles, I write articles, and I have guest authors who contribute. And we share articles related to how to improve your networking efforts, both online and offline. So how to go to conferences and talk to people and meet new people, or business card etiquette, or how to use, some new things about LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or what have you. So the website, and then there's a paid community as well for members who want to meet other members and communicate and help one another. And that's what we do at Networking for Nice People.
I have a networking question for you. So if you were to send somebody out, send a bunch of business owners out for their first networking event, what instructions would you give them so that they A, didn't break any sort of etiquette rules, and B, didn't go and hide in the corner?
Right. Well, what I always tell people when they go to a networking event, Jason, is you've got to look around the room and see the name tags, whether they're the traditional "hello, my name is," or whether they're a name badge with a lanyard. I always look at those things and consider them invitations to go and talk to people. So that's your invitation right there. These are people that are maybe unknowingly part of your tribe already because they're experiencing the same conference or event as you are. So this gives you the opportunity to go and introduce yourself. But what happens is people don't tend to ask enough questions and let that person do the bulk of the talking. And so what I recommend people do is go to an event. If you're more introverted, set yourself some personal goals and say, I'm going to go to this event for, depending how on the level of introvertedness you are. You could go to an event and say, listen, I'm going to spend 20 minutes at this event and speak to one person, and then I'm free to go. But regardless, so set yourself some goals, go and introduce yourself to people, ask them questions like, who are they? What do they do for a living? What brings them to this event? What do they hope to learn from this event? If you're there at a conference and there's a speaker, for example, then the break after that session is a perfect time to go and talk to somebody because you have something to talk about. It's referred to as triangulation, where you're one point of a triangle, another person is the point of the triangle, and then the third point is that thing that you're talking about, whether it's a speaker, whether it's a painting on the wall, whether it's the buffet at lunch. It's finding something that you all that you share that you can speak about. And that's why, conferences are a great way to network.
So if somebody heads out to a conference or they head out to a meeting or something like that, what do you believe is the actual goal? And obviously it's from what I've heard already is, we're looking to help one another, but what do I know? How do I know I've been successful if I went to a networking event? What would you consider to be successful?
The follow-up is key. So, and that's the second biggest mistake people make after not showing up is following up. And so if you follow up and get a response from people, and hopefully you do, then you've left an impression on them. Now, they may be busy, and it may take you a couple tries to follow up with folks. But by following up with people and establishing relationships from there, where you take it to the next level, so you can say, it was great to meet you. If you're in the same market, let's meet for a coffee, or let's meet for a Skype coffee, or what have you. It's building these relationships and growing these relationships. And then it's finding opportunities to serve those people. And it's a success if you can find a way to provide value to that person. Now, at the end of the day, we all have to sell what we're selling. We all have to make a living. We all have to feed our kids. I totally get that. And so it's obvious you're not doing this to achieve sainthood necessarily. But if you help other people, then good things will come. And whether you call it karma or whatever you want. So it's meeting the right people at these events. It's following up with them afterwards and establishing a relationship so you can, find a way to serve them. So in the follow-up, and I write a lot about tips and techniques to follow up at networking for nice people. When you're following up, provide value. So don't just write an email and say, hey, it was great to meet you at the conference. Bye. You want to write, hey, it was great to meet you at the conference. Yes, the salmon was delicious. And here's that recipe my grandmother gave me that we were talking about during lunch. Or, hey, did you enjoy that speaker? I just found a TED talk from that speaker you should check out. I really liked his point about X, Y, and Z. What did you think? Or something like that. Just, get the ball rolling. Start a conversation via email. And again, find ways to help people. Instead of asking, hey, let me know if I can help you. Find a way to help them. Maybe they need an introduction to someone in your network that you can provide. Something like that.
Understood. I think that's cool. All right, so tell me this. The whole improv thing really, it really intrigues me. So, how does improv fit, into what you do for a living?
So, what I do with futureforth.com is my main business. Is I provide consulting and coaching on companies and people who want to improve their work with digital marketing. But what I've discovered in my own self-exploration and my own personal assessment studies, Myers-Briggs and all that stuff is number one thing for me is communication. It's always communication. And so what I've always focused on in my business is providing help with people for communicating online. But communication also, pardon me, communication is also an important part of what we do in the workplace, obviously. We have to improve communication with our teams. We have to listen better. We have to be flexible and accept opportunities and make the workplace a better place. And for that improves, all of the key things. It improves revenue. It improves company morale. It improves culture. And so what I've started doing is what I call a communication reboot, which is I go into companies, I work with their teams, we go through improv exercises and workshops for, 90 minutes or 3 hours plus, and get really just have a lot of fun and unplug. And as a nerd who's been facing screens since I was like 10, I know how much it's important to unplug and get off the machines and talk to people in real life. And so a big part of my communication reboot improv workshops is that it's getting staff off their machines and get them interacting and having fun.
I love that. So needed, not just for kids, but also for adults. So, how do you feel like we can use improv at work?
We can use improv at work there is a rule in improv called yes and you might have heard of it before. Yes and is the method. It's really the core rule of improv. But it can be applied to just workplace. It can be applied to life, and it's certainly a big part of what I teach. Yes and, the idea of yes and is that let's say there's two people on stage together. And one says, I have a ball. Now, it's improvised, so there's no ball in their hand, of course. I have a ball. The other person says, yes, and let's play with it. And they start tossing it, and the scene continues. But the exercise is saying, yes, no, and blocking that person. And so the idea here is to use yes and in the workplace by accepting, not saying like every idea is perfect and you should run with it. But I've been the victim of sitting at a boardroom table where the CEO asks for ideas, I give an idea, and I get laughed out of the room. And I feel like a jerk. And I think a lot of people have gone through that. And guess what? When you go through something like that, you're not going to put your hand up again. That's it. Right? So with yes and, the idea isn't necessarily to accept that idea, but it's to accept it and give them confidence. So, for example, you could say, yes, and that's a great idea. Why don't we study that a little more and see what we come up with? Or yes, and that would be a good idea to consider for Q2, or, something like that. Not to get them excited that the idea is going to happen, but instead to accept it and give them an opportunity, yes, and let's build on that idea by combining, X, Y, and Z. So yes, and is such an important part of improv, but it's also an important part of business as well.
Love that. I absolutely love that. I mean, what a great way to actually teach people to be willing to take that risk to raise the hand in the first place.
Right.
That's huge. All right. It is time for our resource of the week. So, Dave, tell me this. What is the best way that my listeners can find out more about you and how you go about helping entrepreneurs to succeed?
Right. Well, I do it multiple ways, but your best bet is to visit. You can visit me at davedelaney.me. That's my personal site. It's my personal blog. It's where I live. Networking for Nice People is my site that I've talked to you about here today. Where there's plenty of resources there. And then Future Fourth is my business where I provide improv training. I have a book called Improve with Improv. It's a mini ebook I wrote, and it shares the 3 key things that you can use in improv, and plus a hilarious and tragic story. not tragic that you'll feel bad for me, more like you'll laugh out loud. Oh, that's really sad. In it. So you can find that if you go to davedelaney.me/books. Both my books are there. If you use the coupon code REALDEAL, you'll get that book for free. So davedelaney.com or .me/books, and you can grab it from there. Real Deal.
Perfect.
Yeah.
DAVEDELANEY.me for those who are actually streaming, and for
Yep.
those who are right on my show notes, you can just click through right then and there.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. All right, so I always like to end my podcast, Dave, with what I consider to be a telling question. So if you could give business owners just one solid piece of advice to either help their business or, probably more importantly, help them to live a better life, what would that piece of advice be?
Ooh, that's a great question, Jason. What would that advice be? I think it's important to the idea. I mean, especially if you're a solopreneur or you work for yourself, the work-life balance thing is kind of out the window. But I do work for myself. So, however, I think it's really important to block chunks of time in a week. And if you don't stick to it, it's okay. But I think it's important to block chunks of time. At davedelaney.me, I call it my killer calendar, and you can find it there. But the idea here is to block chunks. So let's say 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. is coffee, writing, and reading. And then 6 to 7, I'm actually looking at mine right now. 6 to 7 is getting the kids ready for school. 7 to 8 is shower, read 25 pages. 8 to 9 is open, then 9 to 10 is business development, and so on. And so blocking chunks of time, not to specific tasks exactly, but more just general ideas, general work, so that you can kind of look at this calendar. And of course, I have it pinned on my wall above me right now. So you can go through Fridays, I go through my finances and so on. So I think otherwise, what happens is you end up spending tons of time doing one thing and not enough time doing the other things that are important. If you have kids and a family, obviously that is extremely important. But then, you can balance it. And a big thing that I think we all fall into is that when business is really good, you tend to spend all of your time on the clients and making sure that they're happy and making sure that you're serving them and giving them the best possible, service. However, if you don't have time allocated to business development during that period, what happens is suddenly those engagements dry up, or they end, or they wrap up, or whatever you say, and suddenly you're left with no work. Right? So this gets back to that killer calendar idea. So blocking time is crucial to every solopreneur.
Brilliant. I love this. All right, Dave, thanks so much for joining me today. I know how busy your schedule is, so it means the world to me that you would spend some of your time and share a whole bunch of wisdom with me and my listeners today. This has been fabulous.
Awesome, Jason. Well, I encourage your listeners to email me, dave@futureforth.com, if they'd like to get in touch, or, of course, visit any of the websites. You can contact me from there.
Absolutely. Folks, thanks so much for tuning into The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. For more information about private coaching or to see if you'd benefit from one of my mastermind groups, visit me over at www.jasonmsilverman.com. I look forward to helping you achieve the success that you truly deserve. Until next time, let me leave you with this. Get out there and be the real deal. Set a goal, make a plan, work like hell towards it, and achieve the success that's waiting for you. Now's the time. Get out there and make it happen. This has been Jason Silverman, and I hope you have a spectacular week.
You've been listening to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. To access the great resources mentioned in the show and for information on coaching and mastermind group opportunities with Jason, please visit jasonmsilverman.com.